All right, so let's dive in. We're going deep today into ancient Egyptian mythology. And this article that you sent is really, really fascinating. And it's got me thinking about all these like really fundamental stories, right? Like the creation myths, the gods, and the dramas that they go through, all these incredible creatures. I mean, where do we even start?
It's interesting. I think what's so compelling about Egyptian mythology isn't just how old it is, but it's how it really reveals this fundamental framework of how a civilization understood existence itself, right? Like these concepts of order and chaos, life, death, and even like the role of their rulers and their divine authority.
Right.
Um, it's all there. It's really
Yeah,
incredible.
absolutely. It's like they laid out their entire worldview through these stories. So I guess our mission in this deep dive is to sort of like extract those most compelling narratives and insights about the ancient Egyptian belief system, all stemming from this fantastic article. So
Right.
the very beginning, the Genesis.
Mm.
It all starts with this primordial state called none. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So none is this really interesting concept. It's this undifferentiated, chaotic ocean. You can think of it like the void before anything took shape.
Mm-hmm.
Full of potential, but just utterly formless. And I think what's interesting is this idea of this watery abyss. It's sort of a recurring motif in mythology across different cultures.
Mm.
It really speaks to this fundamental human curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Of like, what existed before?
Yeah, yeah. What was there before the beginning? Okay, so we have this sort of like watery chaos, but then something emerges,
Right.
like the first solid ground, this pyramidal mound.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we have a lotus flower blooming.
Right.
So this isn't just, any flower. This is profoundly symbolic.
Right. Absolutely. This is where it gets really interesting because it's from this lotus that Ra, the sun god,
Hmm.
emerges. So his birth is this crucial moment where light literally bursts forth from the darkness, establishing order and dispelling that primordial night. It's literally the dawn of existence as they conceived it.
Okay, so we've got Ra. He's born from a flower on a mound in the middle of nowhere.
Pretty dramatic entrance.
Pretty dramatic. And then he immediately gets to work creating more things. We've got Shu, the air, and Tefnut, moisture. Tell me how did this genesis unfold? The article sort of touches on this.
Yeah, so the article describes it as Ra essentially willing them into existence. They then venture out into this vastness of none, and upon their safe return, Ra weeps tears of joy.
Hmm.
And what's really striking is that these tears, according to the myth, are the origin of humankind.
Wow.
This is really powerful and rather beautiful image.
Tears of joy.
Tears of joy,
Creating us.
creating humanity.
I love that. Okay, so we've got light, air, moisture, people.
Right.
But the cosmic architecture isn't quite complete.
Exactly.
We need Jeb and Nut. What roles do they play in solidifying this new reality?
So Geb is the earth, and Nok is the sky. Initially, they were depicted as being very closely intertwined, almost embracing. Their separation, which was forced by Shu, the god of air, was a necessary step to actually create the space where life could flourish. So this active division is fundamental to actually establishing the cosmos.
Gotcha. Okay. So Ra, he's not just this creator god. He becomes the first pharaoh,
Right.
the ruler of this newly formed world.
Hmm.
And he comes bearing gifts, right? I mean, we've got the life-giving sun, but he doesn't stop there.
No, he brings some pretty essential gifts with him. He bestows sacred animals upon the land, each with its own symbolic significance, reflecting aspects of the divine. But perhaps the most vital gift, as the article highlights, is the Nile River.
Yeah.
I mean, this was the lifeblood of Egyptian civilization. Its fertile banks enabling agriculture and the development of their entire society.
Yeah.
It's this direct, tangible link between the divine realm and earthly existence.
Okay, so we have this seemingly stable cosmic order, thanks to Ra. But things don't stay peaceful forever. There's a shift. There's some cosmic tension.
Right.
And Apep, or Apophis, comes into the picture.
Exactly.
What's behind this growing attention to this chaotic being?
Well, it's really interesting. There's an apparent increase in either the worship or maybe even just more accurately, the acknowledgement of Apep, who is this massive serpent residing in the underworld and embodying primordial chaos. So the fact that humans started to focus on this force suggests a possible awareness of the fragility of order, the ever-present potential for disruption.
Right.
So it makes you wonder if this reflected some anxieties about their environment or societal stability, things like that.
Yeah, it's like that awareness that chaos is always lurking.
Exactly.
And Ra, being Ra, is not too happy about this.
Right.
He unleashes Sekhmet.
Huh?
Now, Sekhmet is a force to be reckoned with,
Absolutely.
and not someone you want to cross.
No, Sekhmet is the lioness goddess, embodying this fierce power, divine retribution, and just raw destructive energy.
Right.
So Ra sends her forth to essentially punish humanity for this perceived shift, in allegiance or focus towards chaos. So it's a pretty dramatic intervention.
Yeah.
That really underscores the consequences of straying from that established cosmic harmony.
Yeah, don't mess with Ra.
Don't mess with Ra.
So Ra, even in his divine wisdom, I guess gets a little tired, and he decides to step back, retire in a pretty spectacular fashion on this solar bark. Tell me about this transition.
So this is a significant turning point in the mythology. Perhaps a little disillusioned with humanity's tendencies,
Yeah.
Ra withdraws from this direct rule and embarks on this daily journey across the sky in his solar bark.
Right.
But his role isn't entirely passive. Every night he undertakes this perilous journey through the underworld, or the duat, as the Egyptians called it, where he confronts his eternal nemesis, Apep, in this ongoing, fundamental battle between order and chaos.
So even in retirement, still actively engaged,
Well, absolutely.
battling the forces of chaos every single night.
Wow. Okay, so as all this celestial drama is unfolding, we have a new generation of gods emerging.
Right.
Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys.
Yes.
This feels like the beginning of a whole new chapter.
Absolutely. It really does. This new generation introduces this different dynamic.
Right.
We really start to see the focus shift towards earthly rule, intricate familial relationships, and ultimately these themes of betrayal, death, and resurrection, which really resonated with the Egyptian understanding of their own mortality and the afterlife.
So Osiris steps forward, and he becomes this benevolent ruler of Egypt.
Right.
And he seems like a genuinely good king,
Oh, yeah.
a bringer of civilization. He's teaching humanity agriculture, law, even the art of bread making.
Yes. Osiris's reign is consistently depicted as this golden age, a time of unprecedented prosperity, order, cultural advancement, all directly attributed to his wisdom and guidance. He's credited with transforming Egypt from this more primitive state to one of established civilization and abundance. Okay, so we have this great king, but there's a shadow lurking.
Always.
And that's Seth, his own brother.
Right.
What fuels this animosity?
Well, Seth is the god associated with the desert, storms, chaos. And he is absolutely consumed by this envy and resentment towards Osiris's success and popularity.
Right.
This jealousy really culminates in this truly malevolent scheme involving this meticulously crafted coffin.
It's like, yeah, it makes you think about the ancient Egyptian understanding of sibling rivalry.
Totally.
And just like the destructive power of envy.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this coffin trick, it's infamous. Tell me how this deadly plot unfolds.
So Seth throws this lavish banquet and unveils this magnificent, ornate coffin, announcing that it would belong to whichever guest fit inside it perfectly.
Okay.
So one by one, the attendees try, but of course, it's only when Osiris lies down that it's an exact fit. Yeah. And in that instant, Seth and his conspirators, they spring into action. They slam the lid shut, seal it securely, and then they toss the coffin into the Nile.
Wow.
It's this chilling act of betrayal.
Talk about a brutal turn of events. So we have Osiris, the bringer of order, murdered by his own brother in this incredibly cruel way.
Yeah.
So what happens next? This is where Isis really takes center stage.
Absolutely. Isis, his devoted wife and sister, is utterly heartbroken and just fiercely determined to bring him back.
Yeah.
So with the assistance of Nephthys, Seth's wife, who remained loyal to Osiris, and Anubis, who's really vital in the funerary rites, Isis embarks on this arduous and magical quest to locate and recover Osiris's body.
Wow.
It's really this testament to her devotion and her power.
It's like a long and difficult journey, painstakingly piecing him back together. And then through these incredible magical abilities, she manages to resurrect him.
Right.
But there's a catch, right?
Right. There is. While Isis's powerful magic brings him back from death, he doesn't fully return to the realm of the living. Instead, he becomes the ruler of the underworld, the Duat. So this marks a profound shift in his role. He no longer reigns on Earth, but he assumes this critical position of judging the deceased and overseeing the afterlife. So this really shaped Egyptian beliefs about death and the transition to the next world.
So the story of Osiris's death and this form of resurrection really sets the stage for the next major conflict in the mythology.
Right.
The battle for order and the throne between Horus, his son, and Seth is murderer.
Exactly. Horus, the falcon-headed god, is the rightful heir, destined to avenge his father's death and reclaim the kingship of Egypt. And this rivalry between Horus and Seth becomes a central and enduring theme. It's this embodiment of the perpetual struggle between legitimate authority and this chaotic usurpation, order versus disorder.
Right. And it's not just a symbolic disagreement. We're talking like epic battles, magical duels, even transforming into like massive hippopotamuses.
Yeah. I mean, these gods are really going at it.
They are not messing around.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about these battles. What are we talking about here?
Well, their conflict is depicted as this really intense, brutal, spanning both the physical and magical realms. So these transformations into powerful animals like hippopotamuses really underscore these raw, untamed forces that they could unleash.
Yeah.
It highlights the seriousness of the stakes and just the magnitude of their animosity.
Yeah. And in one of these legendary clashes, Horus famously loses an eye.
Right.
That's a pretty pivotal moment.
Yeah, it's a key event. So Horus losing his eye is a significant motif. But importantly, it's later restored by Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty, and healing. And so the restored eye, which becomes known as the Eye of Horus, or the Wadjet, it evolves into this really potent symbol representing protection, healing, royal power, and even wholeness and restoration.
Wow, that's amazing. I love how these really specific details become such enduring and powerful symbols.
Yeah, absolutely. So Horus isn't just relying on brute force.
Right.
He's also quite cunning.
Right.
We have the incident with the tainted lettuce.
Yes.
A rather memorable and unexpected tactic.
So Horus tricks Seth into consuming this tainted lettuce. It's said to weaken him. And it further highlights Horus's intelligence and his ability to kind of outmaneuver his more chaotic uncle.
Right.
So it's a testament to the idea that order can triumph through, both strength and strategy.
Yeah. Brains and brawn.
Brains and brawn.
So this struggle between Horus and Seth, the article mentions that it goes on for 80 years.
80 years.
80 years.
That is an incredibly long feud.
That's a long time.
It is.
What do you think that extended conflict signifies?
Well, I think the sheer duration emphasizes this enduring and persistent nature of this struggle between order and chaos. It wasn't a quick or easy resolution, It was this really prolonged battle for dominance, reflecting maybe the inherent challenges in actually maintaining stability and justice.
So eventually the other gods have to get involved.
Right, enough is enough.
There's a divine court presided over by Ra.
Yes.
To make a judgment. How does that play out?
Well, after decades of conflict, the Divine Assembly, with Ra presiding, finally convenes to settle the dispute. Right. They ultimately rule in favor of Horus, recognizing his rightful claim as Osiris's heir. And so this divine judgment really signifies this ultimate triumph of order over chaos, formally legitimizing Horus's kingship and restoring this cosmic balance.
So order's restored, Horus ascends to the throne, bringing justice back to Egypt. And this victory has a lasting legacy, right? It directly links him to all subsequent pharaohs.
Oh, absolutely. Horus's successful and rightful kingship becomes this established model, this divine justification for all subsequent pharaohs. They were seen as the living embodiment of Horus on earth, inheriting his divine mandate to maintain Ma'at, that cosmic order, truth, and justice throughout their reign. So their legitimacy was fundamentally tied to this mythological precedent.
Okay, so we've explored the major players, these dramatic intertwined stories. But now I want to talk about some of the creatures of Egyptian myth.
Okay.
Because they are so fascinating.
They really are.
So we have Apep, that colossal serpent, constant threat to Ra in the underworld. What's his deeper significance?
Well, Apep is this really powerful embodiment of just pure, unadulterated chaos.
Right.
The antithesis of Ma'at. So his perpetual battle with Ra isn't just a narrative, it's this symbolic representation of the eternal struggle against darkness, disorder, forces of nothingness. And the belief that he actually caused solar eclipses by temporarily swallowing Ra's solar bark really underscores his power and the ancient Egyptians' anxiety about the potential for this cosmic disruption.
Right, okay. And then there's Ammut.
Oh, yes.
The devourer of the dead.
Terrifying title.
Terrifying. Tell me about her role in their beliefs about the afterlife and judgment.
So Ammut was this fearsome hybrid creature. She had the head of a crocodile, the forequarters of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. Really like the trifecta of dangerous animals.
Yeah.
And in the Hall of Two Truths, after a person's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma'at, if the heart was deemed heavier, signifying a life burdened by wrongdoing, Ammut would devour it, resulting in complete oblivion.
Oblivion.
Oblivion. There's no further afterlife, no spiritual continuation, just cessation.
Hmm.
So you can imagine that served as a pretty powerful moral compass in their beliefs.
Yeah, a pretty stark consequence. Definitely incentive to live a life in accordance with Ma'at.
For sure.
Okay, let's talk about the Bennu, which the article points out is very similar to the phoenix in other mythologies.
Right.
So what is the Bennu all about?
So the Bennu is essentially the Egyptian precursor to the phoenix, and it really holds this deep association with creation, rebirth, and this cyclical nature of time.
Okay.
So the myth of its self-creation, rising from either ashes in some accounts or from the primordial waters of none in others, and it's perching atop this sacred rock, all symbolize renewal, resurrection, this constant return of life from apparent destruction. And its connections to both Osiris, representing death and rebirth, and Ra, embodying this daily cycle of the sun, really underscore its significance.
Yeah, I love how it ties back to those two central figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and last but not least, we have the super part.
Oh, yeah.
This creature is just so bizarre and fantastical.
Yeah, with a leopard or a lion's body and this elongated neck of a serpent. It's a weird one.
Yeah. What's the deal with this creature?
Well, the serpent part is, it's truly enigmatic. It appears predominantly in pre-dynastic Egyptian art. While its precise meaning is still debated among scholars, its depiction suggests its importance.
Right.
It's often interpreted as symbolizing these untamed, potentially dangerous forces that existed beyond the ordered and cultivated lands of Egypt. It's this reminder that even within this structured worldview, there were always these mysterious and powerful elements at play.
Yeah, love that. Okay, so we've got all these creatures, and they really enrich this tapestry of Egyptian mythology. But taking a step back, what are the fundamental principles that emerge from all these, these interconnected stories?
I think the article really emphasizes this core principle of order versus chaos, the fundamental duality of Ma'at and Isfet.
Right.
So Ra and Horus stand as these champions of Ma'at,
Yeah.
representing balance, justice, truth, and cosmic harmony. Conversely, Seth and Apep embody Isfet, the forces of disruption, violence, and the primordial void. So this constant tension between these opposing forces is pervasive throughout their mythology, and it really shaped their whole understanding of the world.
And then we have the powerful story of Osiris's death and his return in a different form, which
Right.
really ties into their beliefs about what happens after death.
Absolutely. Osiris's journey through death and his eventual role as the ruler of the underworld are really foundational to Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. So his story offers this compelling model for the possibility of overcoming death and achieving this kind of eternal existence in the Duat.
Yeah.
It really underscores the importance of the funerary rites, the preservation of the body, and this hope for a continued existence.
And then we also see this concept of cosmic cycles,
Yes.
particularly with Ra's journey across the sky and his nightly passage through the underworld. What's the deeper meaning there?
It's this potent and enduring metaphor for the cyclical nature of life itself, birth, death, and this potential for renewal. So Ra's daily battle against Apep and his triumphant return each morning symbolize the ongoing struggle between light and darkness, order and chaos, and the ever-present promise of rebirth and the restoration of balance.
It's like this constant reminder that even after the darkness, the light will return.
Exactly.
And finally, the role of the Pharaoh is so deeply connected to all of this. They weren't just political leaders. They held this divinely sanctioned position.
Yeah, it's crucial to understand that this belief that each pharaoh was the living embodiment of Horus on earth wasn't just symbolic. It really legitimized their authority. It placed upon them this sacred responsibility to actively maintain Marat, cosmic order and justice, within the earthly realm. So they were this vital link between the divine and the mortal worlds.
It's amazing how everything is so interconnected.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key insights that stand out to you the most?
I think the most enduring takeaways are just this profound emphasis on the cyclical nature of creation and destruction, the necessity of constantly striving to maintain order against this threat of chaos, and just the sheer power of these stories. They're so influential in shaping a worldview and the very fabric of this civilization.
Yeah, they really are enduring. So, listener, here's a final thought for you. Consider the enduring power of these ancient Egyptian myths. How do these fundamental struggles between good and evil, order and chaos, and their concepts of leadership and justice still resonate with us today? What echoes of these foundational narratives can you identify in our own stories, our beliefs, even in our own societal structures? It's a powerful reminder of the enduring human need for narrative, for meaning making, and for understanding our place within this grand cosmic order. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.